Hello and welcome to episode 3 of our video diaries. I'm Amanda.
And I'm David.
Still. So we are having a chat today with you about Soma, like what the heck is the Soma? We teach Somatics, if you're not already aware of who we are and what we do. And one of the big things that we talk about a lot on our teacher trainings is this difference between teaching to a body rather than teaching to a soma. And in fact, this is one of the main things that people have to get used to switching to, I would say.
Yeah, it's quite a powerful difference to shift from addressing a body and then shifting to addressing a soma.
So if you read about this in terms of somatics, many people say soma means the living body, or the soma is the body, or a soma is the experience of the body from the inside. And while they aren't untrue, I don't feel that they really give the full picture and the full experience of what it is to connect to your own soma, and when you're teaching somatics, then to teach to a soma.
It's sometimes the way that it's been presented to me is it's the difference between a thing and a process. So a body seems solid. I can look at a body and see all these things. But a living process is an ongoing subjective experience. So when I'm having my own sensory experience, I'm on the inside, I might look in a mirror and see a body. By my actual experience, my somatic experience is largely sensorial.
And also looking in a mirror and seeing a body can sometimes take us away from the experience we're having. And getting us to focus on something external to us, which is almost disconnected. The two can often be disconnected. So I was just thinking as you were saying that, like how, I think this is from something I heard from Thomas Hanna in one of his workshops while he was getting you to lie down and be still. He would be chatting about something, and it was about the computer. Not that I particularly like analogies between computers and human beings, they don't always work. But I thought it was interesting what he was saying, how often if we can't get something to work on the computer, we're typing something in and it's just not showing what's on the screen, what we're expecting, we can sometimes hit the button a little bit harder, thinking that that's going to make the thing happen. And this is kind of similar in a way to if the body doesn't do what we're wanting it to do, we push a little bit harder, like to make it go somewhere or to make it do something.
To force it. Thinking
that will be the thing that will make it do whatever it is that we're trying to make it do. But like the computer analogy, sometimes it's not the button or the key or the amount of effort we're putting into pressing it. Sometimes it's about the computer program that's been written, and that might not be the right key to press to get the thing to work. So with a body, it's not about pushing ourselves into a certain way of doing something. It's starting to understand, what is that computer program for me? What's my process? What's happening between my sensory awareness and sending the motor signals to the body? So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at. And so in terms of me sensing my soma, for me it's about tuning into and settling into my inner world, I suppose. Not just, can I feel where my feet touch the floor? That's part of it. I'm not saying it's not, but it's a little bit more than that once we start getting into movement.
It can be a lot more than that once you get into, not only once you get into movement, but once you delve deeper into soma. I was reading Reginald Ray's book, The Awakening Body, and in there he talks about soma. And I think the way that he presented it there was that body is the conscious body and Soma is the unconscious. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do sense a distinction between the two. And the other way that I've come across it is that when I talk about a body, it seems solid, it's objective. I can say that is a body. But a soma is subjective. So I'm having a first person experience. I'm subjectively experiencing my own fingers. I'm subjectively experiencing sitting on the chair. The shape that I'm making, I don't know what that looks like, but I have an internal sense of myself in this arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not static because my hand's moving as I'm talking to you. So there's lots of moving parts. And so to move into that way of approaching things engages us in a different way of learning, moving, sensing, and organising ourselves.
Yeah, and it is much more about an inner world. So I could teach you how to do a movement from Somatics by guiding you into it from an external place of roll your pelvis in this way, let the head roll in, chin towards the chest, lift the back up away from the floor, inhale at the same time. I can give you all the external instructions to guide your physicality into a certain place. But somatics isn't that. Somatics is, what are you sensing as you go on that journey? So yes, you need the instructions first to know what the journey is. But once you've got the instructions, you might start the journey and just notice something and then come away from it and back off again because you're tuning into what you're sensing. So it's more about how do I make my back lift up off the floor as I breathe in? What's happening? Where does that movement start from? And am I doing it kind of unconsciously without thinking because it's just habitual? Or am I choosing to make it happen in that way? Can I start the movement from somewhere else? That's when we start exploring more on an internal level to notice, how am I using myself in order to make certain things move or happen? And then eventually it gets less about getting anywhere. We might set up a movement, but it really isn't necessary to roll the pelvis in a certain way or to get anywhere with that. It's more about, what do you do in order to engage the muscles, and how can you, and what do you do to soften and let go? And can you notice anything else happening in the rest of yourself? You know, and that's when we start delving into this much. It's a bit like a TARDIS, this inner world, because, you know, here's my physical body, my inside. Surely there's less inside than there is outside. And yet it feels like there's just so many worlds in there to explore. So our processes, how we make things happen, how our bodies work on the inside is like hugely fascinating to me. But also it seems to be so open-ended, and there's infinite possibilities. And I think what we've done mostly as we've evolved as human beings is we've learned a certain level of possibilities to get certain things done, and we've just stuck with those because they work until they don't.
One of the other things that we did within our recent work is we shifted emphasis as well from Soma being a living body to Soma as a cell. So it's another description for a cellular structure. And within the cell, there's an outer membrane, and then inside of it, there's a nucleus. And then on a day-to-day basis, there's a metabolism, so the living processes that are going on. And the other thing is, if someone's going through major change, there's not just metabolism, but there's also metamorphosis going on. So people are changing. So there's a stability and a mobility inside of your cellular structure, but also inside of your soma as well. So there's an inner aspect of you that is the nucleus, and then there's this outer skin, the outer representation of you that shows up in the world. And most of us think that the outer is it. And there's all this other stuff on the inside, these other patterns and processes that are ongoing that we don't even recognize. If I just say, put my hand there, I have no real idea or no real focus on what happened in the back of my body, what happened in my chest, what happened in my feet to support that happening.
Yeah. So this whole thing about somatics is dealing with soma. It is quite a broad and deep topic, and so the differences in terms of how we teach and what we're teaching is, well, first of all, we're not really teaching bodies. Now, even though people might come to class or take a class or do a workshop with us because they've got a bodily issue that they feel or know that somatics will help them with, it doesn't mean that it won't. It means that when we teach what we're teaching, we're not teaching to that body. We're teaching to the soma, we're teaching to the processes, we're teaching to the nervous system that regulates all of these things going on. So it's not important how you put your feet, where you put your feet, whether they're perfectly parallel, or, you know, if you do a move like me or like David, that's really not what we're teaching in what we offer. We're giving you a situation or circumstances to move within, and then guiding you into noticing for yourself, how are you doing that? Is it easy, effortless? Could you do it differently? Lots of different questions, so that you start questioning yourself and noticing and become curious and start exploring, how am I doing that? You know, and you start to notice what you're doing that you could let go of, rather than just holding on to patterns that you didn't even know you were holding on to.
And what you weren't doing that you could begin doing.
Yeah.
One of the ways that I've come across this is in terms of closed systems and then open systems. So a closed system is, there is a set range of possibilities and you operate within that. You do things within. And then there's another opening field where it's continuously evolving and developing. So there aren't any set patterns as such. There are changing patterns. There are evolving patterns. And in that respect, you can use your sensory feedback. You can place your hands in a particular way, and then you can begin to sense, well, how could I do that differently? So I could put my hands down differently. How does that feel to place them there? What would I have to do differently for that to be enjoyable or pleasurable? And so it begins an ongoing process of learning and growing. It's sustainable learning, it's sustainable growth.
And exploring and being curious about that.
Yeah.
And what I've also noticed is, through taking part personally in that kind of teaching, exploration, and also watching others and having feedback from others, it takes me and takes others into a more empowering place of making choices, but becoming aware that I have choices that I can make. So becoming aware that I can move whenever I need to, rather than getting so involved with what's going off on the outside that I hold myself in a position that's not comfortable. So the more I connect into Soma, the more I can become aware that there are lots of opportunities of making a choice, changing my mind, changing my body, changing my soma, whatever. You know, it becomes like this place of possibility to live from. And that way, when we're teaching people and when other people that we've trained are teaching people, we're not putting ourselves in this place of the one that knows what they're doing and everyone taking the class is taking the lead from us. And
perfect.
Yeah, and we're asking us, when do I breathe and what do I do to create this? It's always about taking that person into a place where they can explore that for themselves. We can give guidance, we can make suggestions, we can use the body, as in watch another person's external expression of their soma and give feedback so that they can become more aware of what they're doing. But it doesn't make us an expert because we're not in that body. And that, the people can give me personal feedback about, my physicality, and it's useful to a point, but it's always coming back to me. And then what do I feel and how can I use that? And is it useful for me? So it is for me, it's been a really different way over the years of evolving the teaching and the learning from this field of work, where it's not in that old hierarchical way of teacher and students. It's more about a group of people, peer learning, that, it's not set up in that kind of hierarchy is the only word I can come up with. So when you're giving that power to people, then all sorts of unknown things can happen through classes, things that you can't plan for in your, making a plan and right, I'm going to teach this, and this. So I just find it so empowering and so open-ended. And I think that's why I couldn't really ever teach to just a body again.
We do use the word body, and but the tendency is as much as possible we'll use your body, so it becomes who's the you who has a body.
Yeah. Because using the body almost makes it a thing outside of myself.
It's very abstract.
Yeah.
It's this thing, and it's got arms and legs, and it moves and it talks, which is different from me sitting here and then moving and talking. They're two completely different things, and sometimes it sounds like it's just semantics. I'm just
which is funny because often people think we teach semantics if they don't know what somatics is.
And the other thing is they'll say, it is semantic, but there's a difference between black and white. They're completely different things. So a soma is not a body. It has similarities to a body. I think one time we delivered a training and we actually put forward that the soma was the interface between the body and the soul, and so the soul is more of that nucleus, and the body is that outer membrane, and then the soma is those internal processes that are communicating between this kind of central intelligence inside of you and the outer manifestations. And it's quite cool to go and play in those regions.
So what I invite you to do is to have not even just think, but not to have a think about it, but to have a sense about it, to take some time to sense into me, the body, and then me, this, like you said, central intelligence, consciousness, awareness, and then me, the way in which I use that awareness to move the body. And what I feel is a way into soma.
Your body even.
Sorry, there you go. Takes a little while to de-learn. But one useful way to go into Soma for me is to focus more on quality of movement and the way in which I can be and do and feel. So yeah, more about the qualities, the sensations, and how I do something. So is it quick? Is it slow? Is it smooth? Is it easy? Is it with I want to get it done, or is it with more compassion and love? So that's like my doorway into it. So have a little play and let us know, what is your experience when you are in connection with your Soma? And we look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you in the next video.
See you then.
Bye for now.
Bye.